Hello, hello, Amplify You. Michelle Abraham here, your host. And today I am bringing you another amazing Ask the Expert interview. And I've got Jay Fairbrother with me today, who is a serial entrepreneur, a business coach, and mastermind guru with 30 years experience buying, selling seven-figure businesses. Let me tell you more about Jay in a second. But let's first say hi. Hey, Jay, how are you doing?
Hey, Michelle. Happy to be here. I'm happy to be considered an expert.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited that you're here too, because we actually got to meet in person a few weeks ago in Phoenix. And that was great. So you're someone whose name I've seen online everywhere for the last 10 years. And finally, we got to put a face to the name and meet in person. So it was super great. And we happened to be there learning about masterminds, which is your game. So I love that we're going to bring you here because I got inspired and I'm like, I've been running a mastermind for the last year. And now I'm like, I'm obsessed. I love masterminds. I think they're the best way to go. And I just want to hear all of your stories. So Amplify You family, tell you a little bit more about Jay. Jay's story includes losing everything after the 2010 financial crisis and rising from the shame to shine as the Mastermind Guy, which is why he's here to talk about masterminds today. As an executive VP of global leader organizations, Jay is also responsible for recruiting and managing amazing entrepreneurs from across the globe to start a regional chapter of Globe, GLO, and create masterminds globally. Jay helps coaches and experts with the program Pricing for Profit, which is a masterclass and mastermind mastery, launching your high-end mastermind in 60 days, which is awesome. So Jay, I don't know, I'm not familiar with GLO. What does that stand for?
Global Leaders Organization. That's an entrepreneurial community modeled after EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, Young Presidents. So we set up chapters, and within those chapters, we run mastermind groups.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm Canadian, and maybe that's why I haven't heard of it yet, but I know of that EO organization and the Young Entrepreneurs, so that's awesome. Very cool. So tell us a little bit about masterminds, like why masterminds for you?
So, Michelle, I can barely remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, but I vividly remember 25 years ago when I walked out of my very first mastermind meeting and said to myself, oh my God, I finally found my tribe. So at that point, I was a couple of years into being an entrepreneur with my first company, which I, of course, started with nothing and financed it on credit cards. And I'd had some pretty good success off the bat. I got to about $1 million in revenue, but I got stuck there. I couldn't seem to get beyond that $1 million revenue range. And that's when I went to my first mastermind. And suddenly I was surrounding myself, instead of surrounding myself only with other struggling entrepreneurs, I was surrounding myself with some more successful entrepreneurs. Some were about in the same place as me. And it made a huge difference. And the reason it made such a big difference for me as well is because part of my story is that my father died when I was 10 suddenly. And I reacted to that as you can imagine, a 10-year-old would. I withdrew, I disconnected, I became the lone wolf. It was me against the world. It's led to a lot of misspent bad behavior in my teens and 20s. But so I kind of had this, this idea that I'm an entrepreneur on an island and alone with everything that I'm going through. And when I started to surround myself with other people in a mastermind, I started to be like, oh my God, these people all have the exact same issues that I have. And they have the same aspirations and the same goals. And my God, we're actually start working together, and I'm going to have people to bounce things off of. Most importantly, I'm going to have people to share that have my back. So you mentioned that me losing everything. So a large part because of that mastermind, I scaled my company to 10 million in annual revenue, a couple hundred employees, and I sold it in 2004. Next few years were a lot of fun. I bought some companies, I invested, I traveled. And then after the 2008, 2010 financial thing, like many people on the planet, I lost everything. And again, my reaction was very much like when my father died when I was 10 years old. I withdrew, I isolated, I dealt with all that shame. So quite literally over a 2-year period, I went from being a multimillionaire living in a mansion to living in my friend's basement without a car. Well, guess whose friend's basement I lived in? Somebody that was in that mastermind that I started with, and I stayed in that mastermind for 17 years.
Wow.
Getting together every month with pretty much the same people, a little bit of, attrition in those 17 years. But so masterminds to me, when they're properly run and facilitated and structured and organized and have the right people in them, are a place where you develop real connection. And so my mission in the world is to create more connection because of how isolated and disconnected our world has become. Just go out in public and look at people buried on their cell phones. And so what I found and I've learned through masterminding is that I've developed closer relationships with some of the people in my mastermind than even my own family members. What happens in a mastermind is you can get to those deeper, more vulnerable levels and really talk about the real things that are going on and not the sort of surface sort of questions that you usually find in business networking or coaching and those kinds of things where people, really open up and get vulnerable. So sorry for the long answer, but that's why masterminds for me. And that's why, I am now trying to teach others how to organize and run them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love those. I was smiling and nodding the whole time because I'm like, yeah, totally agree. I've been involved in masterminds probably for the last 6 or 7 years in my business. And it was because of the people I've met through there that I feel like I've had a community. And like you said, some of them, it's like a relationship accelerant. If you kind of like podcasting, right? If you, I feel like I've gotten to a deeper level of understanding with some of those mastermind members than I have with some of my own friends and family in my own community here in I call it in real life, but that is also real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But, it's been one of those things that I feel like over the last few years, there's been a little bit of confusion around the word mastermind. And even myself launching our own mastermind this year, I had some conversations with people what exactly is a mastermind and what isn't a mastermind? Because what I'm seeing out there in the world of coaching spaces is that some coaches out there are giving their whole year-long coaching program, but calling it a mastermind. And that confuses me a little bit because traditionally that's not a mastermind. So, Jay, what's your take on what the heck is going on out here and what actually is a mastermind?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right that a lot of, first of all, most of the, really successful coaches, experts, authors, speakers on the planet have a high-end mastermind. Now, the trick is that some of those aren't actually masterminds. They just use the mastermind label because it's a little sexier and they can charge more money. But they're really just glorified group coaching programs, meaning you show up, you pray to the altar of the guru, there's a little bit of Q&A, and we call it a mastermind. A true mastermind in the Napoleon Hill sense is the concept is you put one person with a brain in a room and another person with a brain in a room, and you've created a third brain. Mm-hmm. And so the true mastermind kind of format is typically small. So 8 to 14 people. And it's not a revolving door. It's, it doesn't have to be exactly the same people, but there's a cohesion with the group and you grow together as a group and learn to develop those deep relationships and learn how to help each other beyond surface level Q&A. So that's kind of what the true mastermind is. And there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of room between a true mastermind and, what some of these masterminds you've referenced that you've seen or maybe even been in that aren't true masterminds. What I try to do, I'm not out to preach or prescribe that you have to do it any certain way. What I try to do is educate people on all their options for creating something between a group program and a true mastermind. I call them hybrids. Because in the coach, speaker, expert, entrepreneur space, people are typically coming to us and willing to pay us to be in these programs because of our leadership and our content and our expertise, right? So they still want some portion of that most of the time. versus a true pure mastermind, which, as you know, I'm in the middle of organizing one right now, where there is no, you're not joining it because I'm leading it. I'm putting it together. I'll facilitate it, that kind of thing. But we're all equals in the group, right? So that's a pure kind of true mastermind. So there's, whatever you call it, I don't care what you call it, but if you take some of the strategies and techniques and protocols that we use in true masterminding and you trickle those down into your group coaching programs, meaning your programs that have 20, 30, 50 people in it, you're going to get better retention. Most importantly, you're going to get better implementation and results from your clients. And so that's part of what I try to teach in my programs.
I love that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because as going from the coach role to like being a mastermind with some of your clients, that this makes it really weird. Like you I don't coach them. This mastermind part is like a collective. Or I think for myself, sometimes to getting out of the coaching role into like the collective role and facilitating role is an interesting one too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And part of what I provide in the stuff that I do is facilitation training, and it's not like some how to lead a corporate meeting type facilitation. It's specifically as a guru leading a mastermind. Here's how to facilitate. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes you're almost switching hats in the same meeting. And what I'll do sometimes is I'll say, if we're in a mastermind, I'll say, if it's okay, I'm going to put my coaching hat on for a second and talk to you as the guru leader, person you're following, expertise you want, versus being just the facilitator, which is a more neutral kind of position where you're sharing experiences and that kind of thing, but not actually doing the coaching and training.
That's a great idea. I also saw some really other interesting ideas for like putting masterminds together that were, it's like not necessarily a space that you're in, but it's a space that perhaps you want to get into. And so putting some leaders of a group together that, you feel like are aligned and you're going to get lots of benefit out of that too. Can you just talk a little bit about like, instead of it being like something that's in your zone of genius, like what, like are some other ways that you can create masterminds that you benefit from other than just like when you're in your work?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do try to teach is that anyone can start a mastermind. You don't have to be this huge authority figure, this, incredible content generator in order to start and run a mastermind and get people to pay you to be in it. Yeah. The model that you sort of alluded to is what I call an access mastermind, where you could be, a peon in your industry, but if you know a few of the superstars in your industry and you can go to them and say, you know what, I'm thinking of put together a mastermind for people like you, and you name drop a couple of others that and you kind of build it from the standpoint of, if I can, so I'm already talking to you and you, if I can also get this person, and this person interested, is that a mastermind that you would want to be in? And yes is going to be the answer. Like in other words, you're putting together these players that are quote unquote bigger than you or more authority or expertise, whatever, further along in your industry. And you can put together a structure and a framework where they're going to get to meet and take advantage of the other people that they consider peers and admire in the industry. Absolutely. That's a way to go. And it's a model that's been done many times.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one too. And are there other types that you mentioned that you called that a certain type of access mastermind? Are there other types of masterminds that you consider to be a type?
So one of the things that I teach in terms of distinguishing between like groups and group programs and masterminds is there are what I call task-oriented masterminds. Mm. So that's closer to like a group coaching or training program where, okay, you're going to commit to be in it for 6 months or 12 months. And here are the specific outcomes that you can expect to achieve in those 6 to 12 months, right? You're going to launch this, learn that, change this. And I just want to add here, it's a little bit of an off tangent, but a lot of people think when they hear masterminds, they think it's just for entrepreneurs. And actually, one of the easiest ways to create and attract people to a mastermind is for people who help people with any kind of lifestyle changes, whether it's mindset changes, healers, spiritual people, because those typically don't happen in a 2 month, you don't get results in 2 months. Like this is a lifelong process of, on a journey, right? And those are perfect for masterminds. So back to there's task-oriented masterminds that have more specific outcome. And then what I call process-oriented masterminds. And that's where there isn't as specific an outcome. So when I joined that first mastermind 25 years ago, the only outcome that I expected when I joined is to grow my business and become a better entrepreneur. That was it, right? It wasn't like I'm going to, go from $1 million to 2 million in revenue in 12 months. I'm going to do this. And it was an ongoing mastermind. You just signed up and you left when you weren't getting value any longer, which for me was 17 years. Actually, I didn't even leave because I wasn't getting value. I left because there was a competitive conflict because of something new I was doing with one of the other members, and I volunteered to step out. That mastermind is still going on now, some 25 years later.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And so, the masterminds I've been a part of have been so instrumental in making me feel like I have a community and support. Like when I was a solo business person. And so, are there any other benefits that you really wanted to highlight of being a part of a mastermind? Like, I know for me, it's been like the community, the support, and then this tank of people that I can go to for resources if I need.
Yeah. So there's lots of benefits. And the main thing to me is it's about connection. So in a mastermind, you want to create intimacy and vulnerability and create a safe place. Confidentiality is critical in a mastermind, where people trust each other, that people are going to honor that confidentiality and people are going to show up on time and not miss meetings, because there has to be mutual respect in a mastermind amongst the members. If they showing up late is disrespectful to the other 10 people who showed up on time that are just as busy as the person coming in late, right? So you've got to create that culture and those expectations up front. So it's that connection, and obviously, as things you mentioned, the expanded network, the resources, it's like having a board of advisors for your life or your business that you trust and can go to confidentially. But the benefit that I also want to speak to is if many of the people in this listening to this are entrepreneurs, experts, healers, coaches, authors. The benefit for you is number one, income, number two, recurring revenue, and number three, a way for your most loyal raving fans to step up and be closer to you and be in your inner circle, right? Be in that group, that small group of people that you pick up the phone for when it rings, right? Like for me, that's a very small group. Right? Yeah. And so what I try to teach and when I do like master classes and workshops, stuff like that, is how anyone can create a mastermind that can add 6 figures in revenue to your business, no matter where you're at. Mm-hmm. One of the examples I use is that if you have a $1,500 course or like a coaching package, one-on-one coaching package is $1,500. You need 67 clients to reach 6 figures in revenue. It's a lot of work to get 67 clients. You need to have the big fancy marketing funnel. You need to have JV partners. You need to, or you can find 9 people who know, love, and trust you that pay $1,000 a month to be in your high-end, intimate inner circle. And you've just created 6 figures in revenue for your business. So what's easier, to find 9 people who love you, not just know, like, and trust, but know, love, and trust you, that would, pay in some cases much more than $10,000 to be in your inner circle, right? There's certainly cases of people charging $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 to be in masterminds a year. And what that does then is it creates recurring revenue, because at the minimum, you're signing up somebody for 6 months versus 2 or 3 or a year, or it's ongoing, right? You just leave when you're not getting value.
Yeah, I think that's really great. It's really good to hear the different options. Like, it's not just one container. This is how it works. I think the key is to make it work for you in your business. And for listening, just thinking about our podcasters that are listening to this, like this is a great way for your podcast listeners who become like loyal fans, but like maybe they don't need your coaching, but they want access to you or more closer connection to you, and link arms with you and grow their business, or whatever it is that your podcast is about. I'm thinking about some of our clients that are in like nutrition or in other kind of spaces that I think this mastermind model would be really good for their podcast listeners, just to come out and get some more access and community build around the topic that your podcast is on.
Yeah, I was just talking about that the other day with a guy who runs a podcast network, and it's a great additional revenue stream for podcasters because you already have a tribe. Now, that tribe, because they listen to your podcast, they know, like, and trust you. And it's not that difficult to move somebody from know, like, and trust to know, love, and trust. You've got to have a little bit of a journey in there and have something that they can spend more time with you. But you might even have fans just listening right now that do love you. One of the examples I give is if, the fans, the people that love you, if if I said, hey guys, I'm teaching yoga at Friday mornings at 9:30 a.m., who's in? Right? Like, I don't know anything about yoga, but they would jump in because I'm teaching it, and they know I'll surround myself with a bunch of other amazing people that will participate. Right? That's where you want to be. And the other thing is that with masterminds, you can often flip the selling script so that there really is no selling, where you get to a point, because you've moved people on this journey from know, like, and trust to know, love, and trust, that it's like, well, no, I have an application process, or I have a waiting list to get into my mastermind. Tell me why you would make a great person to join my mastermind, right? So it's, especially for people that don't like to sell, it's, when you create exclusivity and you present that sort of intimacy that the mastermind provides, it's like, well, how do I get into that?
Right. Yeah. More of that, please. Yeah. No, this has been really great, Jay. I think this is really helpful for people to just kind of have an idea of some other things that they can do and offer. And hey, guys, I have a little secret about masterminds is that they're a heck of a lot easier to run than a group coaching program or online courses that you don't have to create content for, right? Yet you still get to help people get results and amazing results. And if I can tell you my second secret about masterminds is that I've been joining them left, right, and center for probably 5 or 6 years. And that is where like 99% of my businesses come from. And it doesn't necessarily mean they've come from my mastermind, but they've come from the relationships, the people I've met in the mastermind who have then referred people to me. So when you get to be known in your mastermind space, you have a whole network of people. Think about 12 to 14 people that are out there constantly meeting people and working and networking and building their businesses. Oh, if they hear that someone needs a podcast, well, guess what? They're going to automatically remember me because we've been together in this hive kind of type community. They're going to automatically send them over to me. And so that is the accelerant in that your business needs, is to have a community of people outside of yourself out there constantly looking on your behalf for people to connect you with.
Yeah. So I know we're running out of time, but I just want to, that's just reminded me that the other sort of variation on the types of masterminds that you can run is there's industry masterminds. So in this case, in your world, what that would be is a bunch of podcasters get together, and they're not necessarily talking about the same topics, going after the same audience, but maybe they, diversity of topics, but they're all podcasters, and they want to join a mastermind and learn how to be better podcasters, how to monetize their podcast, how to grow the audience. That's sort of an industry type, right? Now you can do that with plumbers and electricians and, any type of business model. And then there's diversity, where you intentionally want to bring in, like in my first mastermind, I was in the fundraising business, and I had a guy in my group that made precast concrete, those big planks that make up the flooring in multi-story buildings, right? And I'm like, as a manufacturer of concrete, and I do fundraising, like, what could we possibly have in common? The diversity that you collect in a mastermind can actually be brilliant, because I don't think I've ever been in a mastermind in that kind of, where there's that kind of diversity, where somebody doesn't ask a question that I think to myself, like, oh my God, I wouldn't have even thought of that question, because we're not all in the same industry thinking in the same box, right? So that's the other thing that Mastermind provides is that diversity of thought, people who think differently than you and that kind of thing. It's brilliant.
That's so good. I love it. So Jay, where can we find out more information about running masterminds? I know you have a master class. Can you share a little bit more about that with us?
My master class I offer a few times a year. The next one I have coming up is September 23. Although I have a 3-day event in mid-July 23, if you're interested in that. The best way to just, if you want to explore this, I have a Mastermind readiness scorecard. Takes 3 or 4 minutes to complete, and it'll kind of give you an idea of how much you already have in place and where some of the holes might be if you want to consider creating a high-ticket, high-impact program like a mastermind or hybrid group program. And that's at mastermindreadyscorecard.com. Awesome. So mastermindreadyscorecard.com. And then if you have listened to this and you want to engage with me, it's pretty easy. My email is jay@fairbrother.com. Shoot me an email and be happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for being here with us today. And for those of you guys listening and don't know, Braden and I actually run a mastermind for Amplify You. It's called Raise Your Vibe. And it is for podcasters, and we do absolutely amazing things. So the first of the month stands for V, which is visibility. So we help you get either more likes on your podcast, more follows on your podcast, more reviews, LinkedIn reviews, recommendations. Everyone has a chance to get something done every month. And then our second one is for I is for influence. And so we bring people in like Jay to come and talk to us about an influencer in their space and how they can use what they talk about to grow our podcast and to make our podcast explode, either monetization or all sorts of other ways of doing our podcast. And then the last 2 are B's for brilliance, where you get to teach something this week, where you get to share something about your podcast that people can learn, or something about the coaching that you do so people can learn a little bit more about you and know how to refer you better. And then the last week of this is expansion. So we're going to get on the hot seats and we're going to get some of our problem solved from other members in the community. So that's our Raise Your Vibe. So that's what the 4 weeks are, standing for Vibe, V-I-B-E. And that's something Braden and I do with Amplify You. So if you're interested in checking that out, please come on over and shoot us a message, Michelle@amplifyu.ca or Braden@amplifyu.ca. We'd be happy to help you sort you out with an application form. All right. Thanks, guys, for being here with us today. Jay, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure. Any last final words of advice for our listeners today?
No, I think you actually summarized it as well as I could. But if you haven't participated in a mastermind, I highly suggest you find one that will add value and join it. And also, I'm happy to help anyone who wants to consider creating one of these programs because quite literally anyone can create one. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. That's so good. Guys, you got to have a mastermind or be in one or be in many of them or be in like lots of them and have your own. That's the best way I see you. Have your own and be in some is a good thing. All right, guys, go out there and have a fabulous week. We'll see you again next week and take care. Thanks again, Jay.